middle of the field. Rod Smith's got it. Here we go. 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Rod Smith, Denver, touchdown. Inside the 10. Head first. He's high. Yard line. He wanted that first down.
And I tell you what, if you want to tell me the 37-year-old man that's going to win this game.
The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. This time is another big stick. Guys ready to the 30, to the 20, Dallas to the 10. Denver's going to first try of overtime. And the pocket is good.
Ball knocked out of his hands. It bounces around. And I think Denver's got it. Von Miller again. Wilson fires. Caught. Touchdown. Sutton. His second of the day.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome, Broncos Country. We appreciate you spending every Tuesday with us. I am your host. I'm Keith Brugman. We got a special co-host. We got Albert Knoppers. Welcome, Albert. How we doing, sir?
Good to see you all. I'm doing great. And yourself?
Oh, doing fantastic. We got Broncos Country already coming in, bud, and we got a lot to get to, man. So, this is, of course, the Rocky. I usually say Jody, so I'm so used to this being, my regular co-host. But Albert here, of course, we're the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast today. We're a proud podcast of the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. Remember to jump over to the Rocky Mountain Sports Network, get your updates on all your favorite teams that keep you caught up on all the latest news, rumors, and highlights. Man, it's Albert, it's been a few weeks since we've seen each other. You've probably had most of your summer since we've seen each other. How have the last few weeks been for you away from Denver Bronco football?
Not really, because I've been following the Denver Broncos, of course, during the first preseason game, this last week's preseason game and training camp. So life without Broncos, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
No life outside of Broncos. You've been focused in, huh?
Focused in, yeah. And I did some updates on my car, so I'm creating a Bronco mobile. So
well, you can't just drop something like that and not give us a little bit more details. What's the Bronco mobile all about, man?
So I have a blue-gray Durango, and I painted a white racing stripe on it with orange flames, and
nice.
On the side I have the Bronco symbol on it. My rims are orange and blue.
Nice.
And I'm not done yet.
Oh my goodness. What's next? What's the next piece that goes on to the Bronco mobile?
I will have some more Bronco logos in the front and probably in the side. And, yep.
Yeah,
it's gonna be good.
Albert, you need to share photos. You need to get them over to me. I'd love to put them up on the podcast and get an idea of what the Bronco mobile, straight out of Durango. No, I'm just kidding. That's funny. It's a Durango, though, of all things. But yeah, I'd love to get that, man. That sounds awesome.
I will do so.
You'll do so. Well, we got first comments coming in. Sis comes in, says, "What's up, boys? What's up, sis? How you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in." Looks like we also got Freddie Henderson. Freddie Henderson, I don't think we've ever announced your name on here before, but thanks for tuning in. I think you're on fire, as well as I think he's talking about the Bronco mobile so far. Or maybe it's just a great show. Man, thanks, Freddie. Appreciate it. We haven't even got started yet. So, man, already getting the great comments coming in. Well, man, I know that you weren't here for preseason game 1. We went from the highs of preseason game 1 to maybe the lows of preseason game 2. I think that we really should break this down. I could probably do my best whistle impersonation of, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but that's my best I can do with my dry whistle I got going on here at the moment. But a little good, the bad, and the ugly. Albert, why don't you let me know what you thought looked good in preseason game 2?
So what really looked good was special teams, I think. Those guys are on fire. And I think we lost Keith, but that's okay. So
I'm still here, but I'm giving you the screen. I'm giving
No.
you it all, okay, buddy? So it's all you, man.
okay. So yeah, the special teams I think was great. Henningsen had his great moments. He still struggles with double teaming, but that will come with experience. And of course, Brandon McManus is his old self again and kicks down those field goals like it is nothing. So that's what I think is pretty much the best. Our running backs, not that great.
All right, that might be on your. Is that going to be on your bad list, or is that just a honorable mention?
It's an honorable mention.
Honorable mention, not quite good, not quite bad, huh? They're the tweeners of the group. Okay. Well, if I had to pick out a few goods, I think I don't know about you, but hey, we saw Rippon come out there and, look a little bit better than he did in preseason game 1. Certainly looked better than Josh Johnson did in the first half. So for me, that was something to be said. Quite honestly, I thought Josh Johnson was being handed this job of QB2. I think Brett Rippon went out there and put at least some questions in the coaches' minds, and I think it's a true competition again for that backup role. So good for him. Carlos Waitman had to come in for Sam Martin. Sam Martin got injured in warm-ups, and I think quite honestly our punting went off pretty well. Didn't see any mistakes there. It seemed like he was getting them off, getting them pretty deep. A lot of fair catches. He's getting them towards the sidelines. So in a competition that maybe wasn't really expected, maybe we have a true competition also in that punter room, and Carlos Waitman maybe is taking the lead, as he's now not injured, looking good, and then he's a left. I don't know if you know this, but he's a left-footed punter, which I guess is
that
supposed
makes it
to
difficult for opposing teams.
Yeah, opposing teams, I guess that spin on the ball and the way it comes off and handling that ball is completely different. So, that was another big, I guess, good for me. And then I think we saw a couple of guys that actually kind of stood out, maybe wide receiver room. I mentioned it on my Facebook page, the Denver Bronco Roundup Facebook page, and over on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network as well. But Jalen Virgil kind of came along. He's been a guy that's been getting a little bit of love, I guess you could say, at camp, and had some good catches again from Rippon. So those would probably be my top 3 goods that I saw. Anybody else out there? We have a few other people coming in. We have Matt saying, "Great show, gents." We got Kenny jumping in and saying, "What's up, Keith?" Also say, "What's up, Albert," by the way, but that's all right, Kenny. I appreciate it. Kenny dropping a quick hello and have a great show. So, well, thank you so much, Kenny. And Danny Kitchen coming in saying, "Good evening, fellas." So if anybody has any good, bad, or ugly that they saw from the game, feel free, jump on in. We'd love to get your comments rolling in here as well. So
One other good thing I have is that the coaches, they're animated. They're not like sticks in the stream like we had last year with Fangio. No, the coaches are animated. They are really into the game, and that is, I think, a big plus.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we talked about last week, if anybody caught that show, I think coaching in general has been better. I mean, we're taking timeouts that seem like we should be taking timeouts at that time. We're managing clocks better. It seems like our team, we're not having delay of games or anything like that. We're not having trouble getting plays in. We're not having to take timeouts because we're not in alignment. So I think the coaching in general, good point, Albert, has been fairly good across the board, and it's something that I don't know if we're giving a whole lot of credit to this coaching staff, especially when we have a trip up like we did in game 2, or what most people would look at and say, hey, that's a kind of a trip up. I'm really excited about Danny's comment, obviously. I just left it up there. So, well, inevitably we had to kind of transition, and, this game it did kind of go down this path. We got some bad, I'll kick it off a little bit, Albert. Boy, I kind of even had a little bit of squeak in my voice there. I don't know what's going on tonight. But maybe it's because I'm nervous about how bad this is, or where this game end up going. But, I think the first and foremost, you got to look at kind of injuries. It's kind of a bad that we kind of end up going across, especially when we see somebody like Michael Ojemudia, who ends up getting injured, ends up dislocating an elbow, which is kind of odd that now we've had 2 dislocated elbows. That's taken out 2 players that were going to be key in our defense, both in Jonas Griffith now, and then we've got Michael Ojemudia. It was disappointing because we really need to see him A, step up, and B, be a part of this. And now they're thinking 3 to 4 weeks for him is what I've heard. I don't know is that what you've seen as well. So that's got to be a bad for me right off the bat. We also had Zach Johnson, if I remember correctly, and he ended up actually being part of the waiver injured list. He was an offensive lineman who ended up going down and like I said, subsequently ended up getting waived and released as part of the cut down process as well. And so anytime that obviously we're having injuries, that's got to be a bad for me. Outside of that, I think I'm going to reserve most of my bads more for my uglies, because I think there was plenty of uglies that we kind of saw out there. But Albert, I'll turn it over to you before we get to any type of uglies. What did you see that you thought was bad?
Our secondary, the second stringers and third stringers, we really have no depth from what I see. If you look at the Bills, their second stringers are they would be on startups with all the teams, starters with all the teams. And I don't think we have that. Do we have some good people there? Absolutely.
Okay.
But they're still rookies. Henningsen, for example.
Yeah.
I really like what he is doing. But you can see his inexperience with double teaming against double teams. But if they leave him by himself, he is a beast. So that's. But so far, I think that's where our biggest problem is: strength in depth.
Strength in depth. And do you? Hey, feel free, go off on that just a little bit. Hey, is that across the board? Is that on offense? Is that on defense? Where do you see that, Albert? Where do you think? Do we have depth in any position, or do you think it's a whole team that we have depth issues? And part B, I'll ask you this: do you think this actually gets resolved 2 to 3 years down the road as these guys become not rookies anymore?
With some of the players, absolutely. Some of the players that we have drafted this year, if they have a year and a half under their belt, I think we have a different team.
Okay.
In the wide receivers, we lost Tim Patrick. Yep. But that is it is sorry, but it is not a real big loss. We have depth there.
Okay.
Offensive line, we have depth in certain positions, but our right tackle, and what if something happens with Bowles? Who's going to take his place?
Very true. We haven't talked about that much, Albert. Don't talk about all these negative things like losing people, Albert. You're right. And I don't think anybody's going to disagree out there, but I don't know if we have the depth for certainly a Garrett Bowles loss. That would be tough.
That would be definitely tough. But I would say our defensive line needs upgrading, and I would say our inside linebackers need some help. With the corners, I think we can get by.
Okay.
No safeties. Yeah, I don't see a problem there at the safety.
I agree. I think that's one place we have some depth. So,
yeah,
I'm actually kind of excited about, for the first time. I'm a big Kareem Jackson fan, but I know his days are limited, and it'll be kind of interesting to see as he leaves the Broncos and we actually see some of these younger guys come in and fill those spots. I think that they will really be able to blossom, and hopefully we keep those guys around for that opportunity. So, Freddie jumping in, and I would have to agree with Freddie. Y'all so lucky to have Russell Wilson. And, yeah, we've talked about this at length, obviously. There was a lot of people out there that we could have went after, we could have had, maybe walked through the door. I don't know if we talked about this much. Albert, are you happy with the Russell Wilson? Was this your favorite free agent quarterback to walk through the door?
Absolutely.
Yes.
When they were talking about A-Rod
Yep.
and getting A-Rod, I would have been against it. He is a great quarterback, but he has too much luggage of him, or baggage, or whatever you want to call it.
Certainly.
And too big of a diva. And he is, from what I think, he is just there for the money right now. And Russell Wilson isn't like that.
Yeah. I would add, now, keep in mind, Aaron Rodgers has now been, taking a little ayahuasca, has been turning his mental state around. He is a more loving, giving person. Even if he's calling out his wide receivers in front of the media, I'm giving you a bad time, Albert. And so
I know, it's okay.
I 100% agree. I was, as much talent as A-Rod brings to the field, I just couldn't imagine, him being a Denver Bronco and having to deal with the, as you said, the luggage or the baggage that he comes with. You don't get that with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson does have a different type of baggage or luggage, I guess you could say. One of the things that was really interesting, especially being at training camp, was just how much his entourage and his family, and there was even a big story about how his wife was the first person they've ever seen walk through these set of doors outside of someone who actually works for the Denver Broncos, and she just waltzes through. So it is very different having a high-profile couple, you know what I mean, being your being your quarterback, being involved with your quarterback. That your quarterback is one of those two people involved there. So Kenny's chiming in. He doesn't know if we have that wide receiver depth, so he's willing to give us Darius Slayton or Sterling Shepard. What do you think, buddy?
We have the team that we need. I don't think we have to go explore anywhere else. Russell Wilson is getting used to them, and I think they're already building great chemistry. So getting an outsider in, I don't think it's going to help.
Yeah,
it's going to improve.
Maybe that plays out. I know that we're a little bit off topic, but Joe Schobert comes in. Seems like about a week ago he came in. I was actually trying to look and see what contract he was signed to, but one of those roster cuts today was Joe Schobert. And even though this is a not Hall of Fame, Pro Bowl,
caliber,
all pro, linebacker, here he comes in. And I think this is very representative of the same thinking that you're kind of talking about, that the Denver Broncos, Coach Hackett, his coaching staff, and maybe even George Payton have, is that same mindset of, we kind of have our guys, we kind of have them already set in their path. And even somebody like Joe Schobert, who I think will have a fantastic career be outside of the Broncos. I don't think he's washed up. I don't think he doesn't have any talent. I don't think that's the issue here. I just don't think he's part of this program, and they realized they just couldn't fit him in, and so he ends up being one of those roster cuts. So
you can see Sternad is still here. So even although Sternad is not the strongest, but there's an opportunity for Sternad to hear that he can make it, and he just has to step up.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I saw. Honestly, I think training camp is helped Justin Sternad quite a bit. He was playing quite well, in my opinion, when I saw him out on the field. Maybe that, hey, we've only had 2 preseason games. I think he was kind of up and down in that first preseason game. But, here's a guy that's hung around, and I think they see in him, especially, like I said, when you see him kind of flying around at training camp, always, I didn't find him out of position. You know what I mean? He was just one of those guys that seemed like he was performing well. And like you said, Albert, by the way, everybody was in disagreement over the fact that we could agree. So I don't know if anybody has any opinions on that, but I thought that this is a show that may not have a whole lot of excitement. I didn't know if we'd bring all the gusto if we didn't have all the disagreements across the board. But we were sitting here talking before the show goes, and we're like, agree on this, agree on this, agree on this. It's like, and Albert's like, I'm like, I don't know if this will be a good show, Albert. And Albert's like, I disagree, Keith. You can absolutely agree, and we can have a great show. So here we are having a great show, just like Albert said. But if you guys have any opinions on that, I don't know if we need to be, ESPN First Take and be at each other's throat and be raising our voices at all. But I thought we needed just a little bit of disagreement. So Jody wants our thoughts. Do you have any additional thoughts on Schobert already getting out? I know that Jody was trying to tune in. Like I said, I just don't think he was a scheme fit. I think that this coaching staff and maybe even the GM have an idea of what they already have in place, and might just try to work that roster that way. Last thing I might say to that, at least from my side, is, and we were kind of talking about it a little bit before we got on air, we'll have roster cuts down to 53 here pretty soon, and there's a lot of guys from a lot of teams that will have to end up hitting the street. It'll be interesting to see exactly who's might be available at that time as well. So, any other thoughts on Joe Schobert from you, Albert?
Yeah, from what I saw during the game, I didn't see much spectacular from him. And if he wanted to stay in the team, he should have put in really the effort, even if others are playing soft.
Yeah.
If you want to prove something, you have to step it up. And I didn't see that.
Yeah, I didn't see him obviously involved in too many plays. And the one play I really did see him involved in is a play that he trailed in coverage on, which probably is not a very good look. That being said, I can't imagine. I don't care what caliber of player you are coming in and having less than a week to get ready to be in a preseason game and go out there and get ready. So don't hold it against Joe Schobert. Like I said, I think he has potential outside and has years in his career left. Just not a fit for the Denver Broncos. So Jody, I'm sorry. I was kind of along the same lines. I thought Joe Schobert might be an answer at middle linebacker, but out the door he goes. So. Well, we need to get to some uglies, but I'm going to take a little break so I can tell you about something a little bit more beautiful, and that's Willow Seasonings and Blends, bud. Willow Seasonings and Blends is a Colorado-based business. It's a veteran-owned barbecue and seasonings company. I've told you guys, all our listeners, about the ribs and the steaks and the burgers that I've made using their amazing seasonings. But I got to be honest, man, I can't explain that mouth-watering, delicious flavor these seasonings give to just about any meal. And honestly, the only way you're going to know is if you try them out for yourself. So I'm telling you, these seasonings are the easiest way to make you look like a pro at the barbecue, and you're not going to be disappointed. So head over to willowseasonings.com. That's willowseasonings.com. And if you'd like to save, I don't know who doesn't like to save, but you put in the promo code NEW15, that's NEW15, NEW15, and you get an additional 15% off your purchase. On top of it, be a buddy, be a fan, be a follower, be a lover, and put Denver Bronco Roundup in the comment, and that way, hey, they know exactly where you heard about them. So, Willow Seasonings and Blends, buddy, have you ever tried any of their stuff out?
I haven't yet, so send me a link and I will get it.
Oh, that's what I need to be doing. We need to be dropping links after this. So, note to self, great note from Albert. We'll be dropping links in the future for anybody who doesn't want to go out there and Google willowseasonings.com. We'll make it even easier in the future. So, wow, there was a lot of things that weren't easy in this 42-15. Kind of a blowout of a game, bud, and we had some ugly plays at times and some ugly things that happened on the field. Albert, what are your uglies? And we'll probably just be in agreement, by the way.
Yeah, the biggest ugly, and he is a big statement of that, was the fumble of Quinn. I think that was the biggest, one of the biggest uglies. A returner should not fumble a ball. He was able to pick it up again, but fumbles are costly, and especially close to the own end zone.
Yeah.
If that would have happened with the first teamers, if that would have happened to Melvin Gordon, entire Bronco world would have screamed.
Thanks for the. I think that was an edit there that I just heard from Albert. That was a mid-edit, but yeah, they would have definitely screamed. Yeah, I agree. Great point. Great point. Especially when you got a guy like Montrell Washington, who's obviously breathing pretty heavy onto that returner position. Not what he needed. But go ahead, continue, Albert.
So that to me, that was one of the biggest uglies. Penalties. Some penalties, they just should not happen, and that is a part of training, part of experience. But they have to pay attention to, especially if it is your audition.
Mm-hmm.
You should not create penalties, and I think that is. It doesn't have to be.
It just shouldn't be, right? It's I agree. Penalties. We had a drive killer type of penalties at times. At one point we were driving quite well, end up getting backed up quite a bit. Never really recovered and end up having to get a field goal. Oh, I forgot about one of my goods because Brandon McManus was actually pretty good. But anyway, continue, sir. Any more uglies from you?
Yeah, and of course QB, Josh Jones. Some of those throws, they were so obvious, and batted balls, near interceptions. That was ugly.
Yeah, from a guy who looked like he really held a QB2 position after the first preseason game. Really seems like he got all the good reps, got all the good plays, and that, like I said, I thought he was the anointed QB2. And quite honestly, maybe he was, until he went out there and he put in that first half performance in preseason game 2, because that, if anything, should have some doubts coming into the minds of the Broncos, coaching staff. If nothing else, I know it's in the minds of Broncos country. Let's put it that way.
And here's the thing: he can use an excuse. I played the first stringers. Well, how many games has he already played way before? He has been in 17 teams, so he should know. He should know what experience is. Yeah. So
no, like you said, telegraph passes and sometimes just bad passes where they were behind receivers at time. You know what I mean? That just didn't give them an opportunity to come down with the catches. It was a bad performance by Josh Johnson. It did not look like he prepared for this game like he was preparing for that first preseason game. Maybe got a little bit of a bigger head. Maybe took a few things for granted. But now he's battling it out hard, and there's only one preseason game left. This is not the Denver Broncos of days gone by where we kept 3 quarterbacks. With Russell Wilson on the roster, there's no expectation that we go beyond 2.
Yeah, and maybe that's the reason why Brad Rippon will be starting the next game.
Oh, man. You're breaking news I hadn't heard yet. So Brett Rippon starting preseason game against the Vikings, home game. Nice.
So that's what I heard, a little after 6 o'clock tonight.
Okay. So, see, man, you're Albert Knoppers always tuning in up to the minute right before we go on the air. Has got all the breaking news, man. Couldn't ask for anything better. This is why he was saying it. We don't have to disagree on everything. Any more uglies from you, or should I take over from here, Albert?
You can do it.
Well, feel free to join in anytime. Just like any of our followers, subscribers, feel free to jump in. I imagine there's one or two things that Broncos country might be able to point out that may have been ugly. For me, it doesn't go much further than right tackle position, in which we do not look like we have a answer, especially with as far as any depth at this point. And quite honestly, with the injuries they have in our presumptive starter at the right tackle position. We don't know what we have at all. It was disappointing to see that side of the line really get dominated. Hey, and I know, the Buffalo Bills went out there, as you said, they went out there with their starters right off the bat. I had no expectations going up against one of what is expected to be maybe a Super Bowl favorite in the Buffalo Bills and their starters. I didn't have high expectations. I was hopeful. But at the same time, this game wore on and on and on, and we kept seeing them sub in second stringers and third stringers. And at no point did I ever feel like, hey, okay, now we're kind of evening up. Now we're actually, dominating that line of scrimmage or controlling that line of scrimmage. It was that right side that just got decimated all game long, and I don't think that played out even in a larger scale than when we actually saw the running game actually hit the field, which was atrocious, man. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. This is the second game, so this is not just a one game anomaly. It's one of the things that tops the list for me as far as ugly, because I don't know if this is something that's fixed come game one of the regular season. That's our run game. Now I know there's been a lot of talk by a lot of media personnel. Again, if we had our starting quarterback out and our starting offensive line out and our top two running backs out and our top tight end out and our go down and our top wide receivers out, yes, we would be in big trouble. That's what this game showed us a little bit of. I agree to a certain extent with that, but again, this is 2 games. This has been no production in the running game. This is the right side being dominated, and at some point, you do have to rely on your depth. So this is the ugly that I think needs to be fixed. I'm going to let you talk for a second, man, because I got off on a rant, Albert. What do you think about the running game?
I think they're keeping the running game behind, and they don't want to show their cards, and that's what I think. Right now, they're trying to get the deep ball going, and maybe a little bit of the running game, but in general, they don't want to show our trumps.
Albert, I 100% agree with you. No, I had to throw that in there, but I do want to say one thing.
Okay.
It does still concern me that they're not showing their cards, because I can tell you some of the plays that we saw at training camp and what we saw, how the plays actually develop, is not the same thing that we're seeing in preseason game 1 and preseason game 2. Good. You shouldn't be putting all that tape out there for everybody to see, and I get that. That being said, I know that this might not be even the scheme that you've been practicing, but at some point you would hope that you could just line up, block guys, go downfield, and get some yardage, of which we've been able to do 0 of in 2 games. So I understand it's not showing all your cards, but at the same time, I think there's something to be said that you should be able to produce more than what you've seen on the field in these last 2 games. Agree?
Absolutely, but I think that our the backups, Boone and others, they do not have the audacity and capacity to be like Javonte, Pookie, and Melvin Gordon. Those 2 are standing way at top of the other running backs, and I think those schemes that they will be playing, Boone and others cannot do.
That's fair, and to be completely honest, they obviously are getting in limited snaps. They're getting it with all backups when they are. I know that this coaching staff has been trying to get a lot of plays in training camp and trying to get a lot of people involved in there. But let's face it, the first team, I can only imagine, is getting more and more reps as we get closer and closer to that regular season game 1. So I'm going to flip right over to the other side of the ball, bud, and it's the same type of ugly, though, and you can't be really happy about this run defense, as well as, again, for the second game in a row, our defensive line has not shown up to be able to stop the running game within the first 3 yards. It seems like every run that was produced via either the Cowboys or even just recently in the last preseason game, all of them have been seeming to go for 3+ yards. I haven't even pulled the stats, but it would be interesting to find out. This is, to me, was really concerning because we actually got DJ Jones back, and he was on the field to start this game. This is the guy that's supposed to be the anchor in the middle. This is the guy that's supposed to be the run stopper, the plug that we hired in from San Francisco. So to me, this was pretty ugly when it came to the run defense, even if we were playing second and third stringers. Albert, how do you feel about our run defense so far through 2 games?
And this is exactly the point that I'm trying to say. We don't have depth. DJ Jones cannot do it by himself. If he doesn't have the support that he normally would have from the first stringers, you can't do it by yourself. And too many rookies yet, they don't know how to be coherent yet as a unit. They're working on it. They're learning.
Yeah. Yep.
But DJ Jones cannot do it all by himself, and that is the biggest problem.
Okay.
If the other 2 are getting injured in real time, we are in a little bit of hurt, and that's what I hope will happen after the cuts. Now they're gonna get some people.
Yeah, we have some opportunities to obviously put some of our own guys on the practice squad, or bring in other guys, right onto the 53-man roster once that big cuts happen around the league. So, would be interesting, I guess you could say, to see what happens in some of these depth positions that we're at. I guess I'll relent a little bit on this one, Albert, because it is just not a one position type of problem, right? You can't just put a guy in like DJ Jones and say that should fix all your ills. It's a guy that's been out there and I've been kind of cheering for ever since he's been brought to the team, that now maybe is even in danger of not making this roster. McTelvin Ajim is just a guy that I thought would play well in this scheme. I thought he was a fantastic athlete. I thought that, he had a real big career here in Denver possibly, and boy, he has not looked good either through training camp and certainly not when he's been on the field. He certainly didn't help out DJ Jones when they were teamed up on the field. Just a guy that, unfortunately, I don't know. In my opinion, if I'm coaching staff and if I'm George Payton, I don't know if his days with Bronco country are all that plentiful. Let's put it that way. So, boy, and I'm trying to think if there was any other uglies that I could think of. I didn't take really good notes this time, Albert. I apologize. But there was some definitely, like I said, ugly play just across the board. That again. I would agree with you. Penalties were ugly. It's something that we need to eliminate. One thing that I would say was really good was maybe Coach Hackett's first press conference after this game, in which he said, the first thing I want to do is apologize to all the Denver Broncos fans for the preseason game 2 they just end up watching. There's not very many coaches that would go out there and certainly apologize for a preseason game and the performance that the fans saw in a preseason game. And I really hope that, that's a turning point. It sounds like it. It doesn't sound like he was a happy guy. I hope that this week in practice is taken seriously. It sounds like the players respect him quite a bit. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes out after this. I would if you had to deem this game good, bad, or ugly, where would you deem the overall game, Albert?
I would give it a C-.
A C. I love it. I give you like 3 categories. He gives me a letter grade. Thanks, man. All right, we'll go letter grades. C- is what we're going with from Albert, and feel free to anybody to jump in with your grades on the game. But C-, and I guess like any good teacher giving a grade to a paper, just give me a little bit of feedback on your C-, and maybe what you'd like to see what you'd like to see better in this game too. We'll get to game 3 here in just a little bit.
So our special teams was great. In general, they were great. So
Okay.
you cannot say they were bad. Our offense, they showed flashes. Was it great? No. Our
Okay.
defense, that was the biggest problem.
Okay.
Did they play the first stringers and second stringers? Yes. Does that make it harder for them? Absolutely. And that's why it is a C-. Maybe they got coach to say, guys, watch what you're doing. Don't get injured, because that will reduce your time on the field. And you can see it with Ojemudia.
Yeah.
Is that something I would have done? No. Because sometimes going for it hurts less than being careful.
Yeah.
I know this because I was a soccer goalie, and if I didn't go for it, I got hurt most time worse than if I really went for it. So a little bit of my personal experience.
Yeah, I agree. Even just my little bit of, I mean, I was nowhere near an athlete. I don't want to say that. This is like when I was like in grade school and playing Little League football, but it's very true, man. If you're hesitant, you're going to get hurt. There is that slight hesitation. Hey, and just in kind of in a relationship, I kind of saw that from Kayvon Thibodeau as he was getting that block that ended up, obviously causing him an injury. You see that little bit of hesitation from him,
Yep.
and rather than going for it, and lo and behold, he gets an injury as well. So, 100% agree with you. There, it's the all agreement Albert and Keith show.
So yeah, that's why. Was it really bad at some points? Yes.
Yeah.
Was it really ugly? Sometimes the fumble, I think, was really ugly, but there were good things, and there is hope. and I think that we will see a much improved game next game. Probably a little bit, but I don't think we are going to play lights out.
Yeah, Coach Hackett came out, and it seems like he's gotten more and more adamant as time has went on. He does not like the preseason. He does not believe in putting his starters out there. He doesn't want them to get hurt. He thinks that's all that is an opportunity to get hurt. He's going to rely on his training camp. He even self-admitted. He's like, I think we've seen teams come out and they're a little bit slower in September, maybe giving himself already a little bit of an out before the regular season begins in saying that. But, he's sticking to his guns. He's not changing his opinion. This is definitely a coach that is looking at saving his players and making sure as best as possible, come week 17, we have, as many starters as we had game 1 as we have on game 17.
And what I like about Hackett also is he takes responsibility. If it is his fault, he will say that it is his fault, and he doesn't throw other people under the bus. And I think he will have a great future as a head coach.
I always say I always reserve judgment until I'm told differently. So everything I've seen so far, has been all positive. I can't say anything really negative about what he's put out there. He's loved by his players. He's respectful with the media. He seems like he's pushing all the right buttons. He's brought a great coaching staff together. It seems like, again, especially within training camp, I'm a little excited to see what hits the field come regular season game 1, and maybe get these preseason games out of the road. I'll reserve judgment to say anything bad, as well as anything further good than that. We'll just have to see how it plays out. I am just this new NFL of not practicing as hard, not preseason play. It's a little bit even for me. I know I'm not a young man, but I'm not an old man either. And that being said, it's just something that I'm not used to. I'm getting used to. I'm accepting it as I saw one guy in the as I heard one guy in the media, Denver Broncos media, say, "I'm not going to shake my fist at the clouds. It makes no difference anyway." So, like I said, I'm excited for the future, but I guess I'll reserve a little bit of right to get too excited. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, last but not least, I guess we have some signings, some cuts. Marquise Spencer was one of the first ones to be waived on an injury designation. Honestly, that was a guy that actually had some flashes in camp, so I was kind of sad to see him go down, and obviously being waived because of it, that sends him out the door. And then we end up signing Divine Ozigbo. He was claimed off of waivers from the New Orleans Saints, a running back. Those were the first few couple moves that we saw come out actually ahead of cuts. Do you have any feedback on those two, buddy?
So the signing of Divine Ozigbo, I think that shows where we are with our running backs. They let one go, sign one up to see if this guy will fit the scheme a little bit better, maybe.
Okay.
So that even that we have a little bit depth in the running back, because right now it is pretty much Pookie and Gordon, and then you have Boone. He's probably penciled in as number 3, but after that there's nothing.
Yeah, 100% agree. I also look at this opportunity as something that you have been talking about this coaching staff and what they like to do. I think there's an opportunity to put in a guy in a game 3, not have to worry about putting in, obviously, not only Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, but also maybe be able to spell Boone a little bit as well and make sure that he is here come game 1, not give him a heavy workload. I don't know if Ozigbo is long for the roster. He does have quite a bit of special teams that he played on, which could be somewhat interesting. It always seems like that's a position that we've been trying to get a little bit stronger at, and maybe he does fit this scheme a little bit better. But quite honestly, especially like you said, as we've kind of rotated through these running backs through the door throughout training camp, it seems like to me this may be just put a body out there that isn't one of our good guys too. So
and see where he fits.
Yeah, maybe he fits. Obviously, you don't just sign a guy for no reason at all if he doesn't fit or you don't think he has any possibilities. But certainly, I don't feel like we have. I don't have a whole lot of hope for him actually staying on this roster. I think he's a body for the week, personally. So, well, boy, Broncos signed Joe Schobert, and then Broncos, like we said, let him go.
8 days later.
8 days, is that what it was? 8 days exactly? Okay. Well, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but do you still feel, we have the guys at linebacker, or do you think we're going to be adding that maybe a guy once those roster cuts come? Where do we sit as far as inside linebacker in your opinion now that Joe Schobert is in and back out after 8 days?
I think as soon as the final cuts will happen next week. Is that next week? I think so.
To the 30th.
To the 53. I think that's where they will pick up on linebacker. Maybe even 2.
Okay.
To get a little bit more. I think that the Outlaw, he is penciled in. Griffith, if he's Griffith, he will be there. Stannard, but I think those are pretty much the 3 that will be. Singleton, I don't think he will be much longer here.
Oh wow, I thought he looked pretty good preseason game 1. Really didn't obviously have much of a showing. I didn't even look to see if he was on the field or how much he was on the field, but certainly didn't make an impact in that preseason game too. Boy, it'd be interesting to see if Griffith or if he, who did you just say again? Singleton.
Alex Singleton, yeah.
Yeah, Alex Singleton. There you go. I'm saying Alexander like I was back in last year or something. So, Alex Singleton. quite honestly, it was a guy that I was kind of hopeful for and excited for. It'd be interesting to see if he ends up being one of those guys that we move on from, or at least push down to that practice squad if we can do that. I know that he also brings quite a bit to the special teams game, so it might be interesting to see if he ends up staying on the roster in that way. But it would be. Go ahead.
That would be his only saving grace, special teams.
Wow,
because
man.
As a linebacker, I haven't seen much of him. So.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been involved in too many of the plays, but at the same time, I think part of the time we don't give enough credit to when these guys' names aren't being called. You know, kind of like cornerbacks. You know what I mean? If you're not getting your name called, sometimes that's a really good day. So, boy, okay, Joe Schobert's out. Like I said, we end up going through some roster cuts today. Trey Quinn was probably the first one. I think we already hit that with a guy that's in a competitive wide receiver room, and a guy that goes back in the return game and ends up having a fumble, though it is recovered. Just wasn't enough. Though he was rising kind of up in practice in the week leading up to that game, shipped out the door as one of the roster cuts today. So, any additional thoughts on Trey Quinn, or can we move on, sir?
So yeah, during practice, you're in your element because you're playing against your own team and against stuff. Makes it easier. At the moment, there's a saying for it, but when the rubber meets the road.
Yes, yeah.
And you're getting nervous, and you could see that with Quinn. If you can't do that if you do that on a consistent basis, you're nervous, then you're not made for it.
Yeah. The next one was a little bit more surprising for me. Like you said, this is in a very deep room. I thought he didn't play terribly bad, even though we've been talking about the run game not looking good at all. Stevie Scott III, running back, was cut from the roster as well. Like I said, that was kind of my thoughts. A little surprising just because of the depth that we have in that room, and had a few plays that he seemed like he was giving some pretty good effort in that second preseason game. Any thoughts on Stevie Scott for you?
I think that they just made room for him to see what Ozigbo could present to us. They had to cut it down to the 80, so he probably hasn't done enough to stay there. Well, let's see where we can get it.
Okay, yeah, just another opportunity, another guy, see if we can get a little bit more out of it. Fair enough. Like I said, just a little bit of a surprise just because of the depth in that room, and maybe they see something in Ozigbo that they like and is comparable or better than what they saw in Stevie Scott III. So Casey Tucker was a guy that, like I said, went down at the injury, ended up being injured on the waive injured list, and waived and then injured. And then this one was one that kind of hurt a little bit, a guy that we kind of expected to jump in and maybe actually have some action. Tom Compton will end up being put on the PUP. He'll be eligible to come back week 5. Tom Compton, what are your thoughts on that, man? Like I said, it's kind of a big blow in my opinion. What is your thoughts?
So here's the thing. When he is on the field, you don't hear his name. So you have to be a little bit impressive to stay on the field. And
Agreed.
I haven't heard much of him. So to me, it means that either he's not doing a good job or he's just average.
Okay.
And didn't he have a herniated disc or something like that? A hernia?
I forget what his injury was, but he's been dealing with this all training camp. He really hasn't even hit the field as far as I know. So went on to just really being on the put on the PUP and being reserved until we come around. Was an off-season signing that we really hoped would be, hopefully play guard or swing guard or something, be able to really help solidify that offensive line, something that we've needed. Like I said, it hasn't had that opportunity to really hit the field as far as I've seen. So
wasn't he able to play tackle as well?
He's played actually, I think, all positions, if I remember correctly. Came over from Green Bay, and that was one of his his big keys is how versatile he was, and he did play all these different positions. So guard, tackle, there was a lot of different possibilities. A lot of people were putting him in that guard position, hoping that, again, that the tackle position was maybe figured out. But I don't know if we've gotten there yet either, as we've kind of hit in this show. So, hey, whenever I get a comment like this, I got to throw it up there. Jacob. I don't know why. I think that's the second time I've done that to Jacob. I've called him Jason. I don't know what it is. So, Jacob, I appreciate you so much for tuning in again and dropping a comment. Always good to see you.
I know why. It has a resemblance with Jason Bourne.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Jason, now, thanks a lot, Albert. Now, I mean, every time I'm going to see Jacob Burke, I'm going to be thinking about Jason Bourne. We'll just call him the Bourne Identity as he comes into the show from now on. He'll have his own little nickname. How's that?
Okay.
Well, very good, man. Like I said, this is the slow. Or I haven't said this, but I should say this. This is the slow part of these cuts. We are going to have to get into some bigger cuts as we go from 53 down to 80. As you mentioned, though, I believe it's 16 spots that we get to put on the practice squad. So any of those guys that are eligible there, we can maybe stash them down on that practice squad. Hopefully they don't try to get signed out of there as well. But that being said, that leaves us with 7 spots, though, we'll still have to definitely get rid of, if not more, especially if we want to take on your idea of signing a linebacker or two to this roster. We would have to be looking at 8 or 9 guys cut from this roster at that point, bud. So, boy, it's going to get a little bit. I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be one of those tough years where you see, I know, some players that you like or love, and as many people have already spoken, there's already talk of maybe some trades. You know, you look at. Maybe like a guy like Graham Glasgow and the needs that Tampa Bay have for the offensive line. You know, does that make sense to move a guy like Graham Glasgow? George Payton says he wants more picks. So if he's going to get more picks between now and next year's draft, it's got to come somewhere. There was a lot of talk about Bradley Chubb at the very beginning of the year, but I tell you what, that has been quelled altogether. You know, there hasn't been any talk of that. So it'd be interesting to see also if we lose some players, not only just from cut, but from trade as well. So,
yeah, and with Bradley Chubb, if you want to trade him in for a pick, what would you get? Fourth round, maybe 5th round?
Yeah,
because he hasn't been proven yet.
Yeah, yep. You would truly be trading Bradley Chubb on potential. What some organization sees in that potential and how much they would be willing to pay for potential, because you really haven't seen production necessarily on the field, especially with the injuries that he's incurred. So I agree. I'd love to keep Bradley Chubb. He's been looking good, if not great, in training camp. Obviously, he's being kept healthy until game 1. So, hey, here we go. Like I said, it's one of those do or die seasons for him. It's contract year, you know what I mean? So he's going to be laying it all out there. It'll be really exciting to put all these guys together. So Jason is something I'm called a lot. So, well, sorry, I'm another one of those guys, Jacob. So how are you guys feeling about Chubb overall? I was super hyped about him his rookie year. How are you feeling about Chubb overall, I guess you could say, Albert?
I'm really excited about Chubb. If you see what he did in his first year, that was tremendous. And then he got that ankle injury, and they did not treat him well. If they would have taken care of him early on properly, I think his 4th year, his last year, would have been a really good year. But they didn't treat him well with his injury. And that's why we have the stats what we have right now.
I agree. Speaking of not taking care of him, did you happen to see Derek Wolf's comment about Vic Fangio?
Yeah.
Anybody who out there who hadn't seen the quote, and I'm obviously going to have to paraphrase a little bit, but the quote was, "Hey, I don't believe in science. That's not how we're going to practice." And to Derek Wolf, he said, "This guy's looking to kill us." is basically was his idea and his mentality. So, or his thought process about Vic Fangio's coaching style.
And
You start to compound that with a guy like Bradley Chubb, who just never seemed to get healthy, and maybe you see why, and maybe that's what we need to be reminded of in order to really appreciate what Coach Hackett is bringing to the field.
yeah, and one of the first comments that Fangio had about Von Miller, he can be better.
Yes. Yep.
And Von Miller was the MVP in Super Bowl 50,
Yep.
top of the
Yeah.
top. And so no, Fangio was not my favorite.
Well, and I won't hold that completely against him. I think that sometimes you do obviously need to challenge your leaders and show that you are challenging your leaders just as much as you're challenging that guy on the bottom of the roster who needs to definitely make those improvements. But in general, I'm 100% in agreement with you, Albert. I was not an overall fan of what Vic Fangio brought to our team or what he brought to the field. So, I think this guy agrees with you more than I agree with you, Albert. And he's saying the preseason just doesn't even matter. So, there's a certain extent to that. If we look at this that we have up behind here, this 42-15. I would 100% agree. There are parts that do matter, though. And Albert, what are your thoughts about the preseason just doesn't matter?
It might not matter for the fans, but for the people who are doing the auditions, the players that are playing for their money, it definitely matters.
Yep.
And if we see a poor performance what we saw last Saturday, it is a little bit of a shame, but it still matters to them. For us, it's a preseason game. We played against the first and the second stringers of the Bills, but yeah, it does matter for them.
Yep. I'll agree with you at this point. And like I said, the score behind us, I remember it seemed like in the late 80s, early 90s, if the Broncos went, and lost every single preseason game, they did fantastic in the regular season, and vice versa. If they won every single preseason game, they would have an 8-8 season or a 9-7 season, and barely put anything together. So from that perspective, I don't take a whole lot of precedence in the score. I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to add one other piece to this. It absolutely matters to those guys that, like you said, are auditioning. These guys are auditioning for the Denver Broncos, and they're auditioning for other teams at times. And nothing, I don't think I could point out a better example than that. A guy that I've been following ever since I seen him be probably one of the most dedicated guys at training camp. First guy out every single day, out on the jug machine, out taking returns before anybody even stepped foot on a blade of grass, and that was Caden Davis. He was one of the first guys cut from the roster for the Denver Broncos. He subsequently actually got a tryout with the New England Patriots on Sunday, and he's waiting to see if he maybe gets on with them. These guys are putting out their tape every single time. He was out there for 13 plays, He fair caught a punt and didn't fumble it, and that's like even the announcer said at that time, sometimes that's all that it takes to know that guy has that ability to be out there in a real game, in an NFL game, and just not even fumble a fair catch where guys are bearing down on you like that. So, hopefully he gets that opportunity. It does matter in that regard, and I would agree with you there. We're not trying to call out any of our favorite fans out there, Scott, but I would, like I said, I would agree with you. It doesn't do a whole lot for our fans to maybe watch the game and get all psyched up about. And quite honestly, as Coach Hackett said, not planning for any specific team and just really trying to look at tape, you're not going to see fantastic plays, and that's maybe not what you should expect either. So I would agree from that fact. It doesn't matter from a score or a win or anything like that. Let's just make sure we get to regular season with those healthy guys like Coach Hackett is hoping to do.
Exactly.
Well, Albert, you and I and all our viewers know what an amazing company Rocky Mountain Sports Network is, bringing you amazing content like Albert coming on and, joining in and, subbing in for Jody and doing a fantastic job. But for all your Colorado sports teams, what our viewers may not know is that Rocky Mountain Sports Network is growing, and they're looking for more talent in lots of different positions as a media company. So if you think you have some talent and you have the passion, you want to put it on display, contact the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. It's something that I did. It's something that Albert did. It's how we got involved. You don't have to be host. There's lots of different positions that we could use some help with as we grow. So again, just go over to the Rocky Mountain Sports Network Facebook page. You'll be getting in contact with Matt. And hey, maybe you can be part of the team like me and Albert are as well. So last thing, I guess I said that before, but I totally forgot. We should just hit really quickly the Vikings and the Broncos with Hackett parking all the starters again for the preseason game. What do you want to see from this Denver Broncos team? And any of our listeners out there, come this next Saturday, I guess, as we welcome the Vikings to Broncos country at Mile High and Vesco Field.
If they play, let them be invested in the play and be motivated and play like it is their livelihood, which it pretty much is. Correct. And not a soft game as we had last Saturday. Yeah,
I would say you could even, if you went back to Hackett's press conference, you could hear a little bit of that as well. He was talking about Faion Hicks. He was talking about Damari Mathis, and he's like, "Hey, I just want those guys to bring it. I want contest those catches. Be a little bit more aggressive. Be a little bit more physical. He understands that these guys are trying to warm up to the ideas of being in an NFL game, and like he said, it's a little bit different when you have someone line up across from you that's a wide receiver one and top of the NFL. It's Stephon Diggs lined up across from you. It's a little intimidating at first, but these guys do need to play at a physical top level. That's fair. That's a fair assessment, Albert. I'll go with that. Anything else you want to see from this game?
That they have fun.
Oh.
And that's what it should be. It should be fun, and I think that is something that Hackett brings to the table. He is alive at the sideline, and I think that energy comes to the players as well.
I love that point, Albert, man, and especially that ending point, because I was going to say that's one thing that we definitely have not seen in the last few years is the fun on this team. It started from I know this was the first training camp that we've had music at in quite some time, but like you said, to go out there, play, have fun, it's something it's something that you should be able to do as a player. That's what it's all about, being able to play loose, free, having fun. Mm-hmm. I'll agree with you there.
There was a really nice little video clip about KJ Hamler and Washington. They had an Oreo cookie competition. Okay. And they really had lots of fun with it, and that is something we need to see more.
What's involved in an Oreo cookie? I can't imagine it was an eating competition of any sort.
No, they put it on their forehead, and they had to wiggle it with their face into their mouth. They could not use hands.
We're already going over on time. If not, I grab my pack of Oreo cookies. No, I'm just kidding. That's awesome, man. Like you said, I love to see that. These guys need to be having fun. There is something to be said about how you can perform when you're actually in that positive mindset and you're having fun. It's tough to be in a negative mindset, feel like you're being ground down, and go out there and perform at a top level. So, a good point there. I'll be honest, when my thoughts went right back to kind of my uglies, I do want to see this offensive line kind of come together. I want to see them be able to produce some type of running game, even if it's not the scheme that we might be putting out there in week one. I would like to see this defensive line come together, be able to stop the run a little bit better than we've seen in these two preseason games. So, me, I think I'm looking for more of that cohesion that we need to see from even the second team when it comes to both sides of the ball in the trenches. I think if we get those things kind of figured out, again, these guys might be pressed into action. Maybe not all together as a group, but they may be pressed into action individually at each individual time. And I just want to see them at least be able to perform as they have as a group in training camp this entire time, go out there and then once again put it on the field in a preseason game and look productive in case we need to have them come regular season.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, we're like not too bad over on time, bud. I think we're doing pretty dang good.
I'm glad.
Yeah, we did all right. So any final thoughts that you have for our Denver Bronco fans and Broncos country out there?
Yes. Go Broncos. Let's ride to a Super Bowl.
Man, I'll go with you there, man. 100%. I'm gonna just go and kind of mimic what you said as far as our team is concerned. I want all our Broncos country and Denver Bronco Roundup fans to go out there, have a great Saturday, enjoy the game, and regardless of what the score looks like, or maybe even at times what the play looks like on the field, make sure you're having a little bit of fun watching some Broncos country football because, hey, man, it's what we've been waiting for all offseason. It's right around the corner. Enjoy the last preseason game. It might be the last time you see some of these guys as a Denver Bronco. Wish them good luck if they're parting ways, and just have some fun as you're watching the game. So that's my parting piece, I guess you could say. So thank you, everyone, for joining myself, Albert, here on the Denver Bronco Roundup this evening. And remember, every Tuesday evening here on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network at 6:30 Mountain Daylight Time. We appreciate all the comments, questions that came in. Remember to always like, follow, share, subscribe. We appreciate you guys so much. And until next time, maybe a little mile high salute as we get out of here. Mile high salute. Thank you guys so much. And